I'm John Shull. I'm here at the Center for Student Innovation at RIT. And I want to talk about a harmonic convergence of bicycle-related events that is happening here in the next 10 days. On October 24th, it turns out, we're going to have the first ever Rochester Cycle Summit, a collection of bicycle organizations, environmental organizations, alternative transport experts, city planners, and, if we can rally the troops, 350 bicyclists, all of whom are going to take a ride down my favorite bike path, the Rochester Greenway, in order to get a look at that site and in order to discuss a large number of projects that are percolating here in Rochester. The Rochester Greenway could make us a world capital of sustainable transport and could bring people from all over the world to look into the possibility that bikes, pedal power, and ultralight electric vehicles could help people make 80% of their transportation in a region like Rochester, even though, as you may have heard, it snows here in the winter. 14 months ago, the Rochester Criterium brought 30,000 people and millions of dollars to Rochester for a one-day cycle event. The organizer of that event, Scott Page from Full Moon Vista Bicycles, is now trying to organize a 6-day tour to New York. And for that matter, it turns out that the premier collection of antique bicycles and the world's greatest bicycle history museum is a mere half-hour south of Buffalo in Orchard Park. The Pedaling History Museum, whose proprietor is Carl Burkwart, is an amazing collection of everything from the huge-wheeled penny farthings that you see from Victorian engravings to, in fact, one of the original wooden drezers. They haven't even figured out pedals yet. Mr. Burkwart is going to be coming to the Rochester Cycle Summit and give us a talk on the past history of bicycle innovation in Western New York. It turns out we played a really important role. But, there's also a possibility that he's going to talk about the fact that he's nearing retirement age and his entire museum is up for sale. Wouldn't it be cool to have a bicycle history museum in Rochester, on the Rochester Greenway? And that also could turn Rochester into a world capital of bicycling and innovation. It turns out that there's a straight as the crow flies path going from RIT in a straight line up to Dinosaur Barbecue, right at the top of the Genesee River. Exactly halfway, you have the University of Rochester. Along this trail, it turns out you have the Lehigh Valley North Trail, you have the Genesee Valley Park, you have Mount Hope Cemetery in the University of Rochester, and you have the Riverway Trail, and you also have the trail up the east side of the river. Every one of those are dedicated bike paths, no cars, a beautiful ride. No one seems to know about it, but the irony is that while to drive from here to downtown, you have to zig or zag all the way over town, the straight line bike ride is only 5.5 miles. It's a former railroad bed, as a matter of fact, and part of it has already been converted on a rails to trails plan into a bike path. So the geography is actually pretty interesting if you think about alternative transit ways. You have students at RIT. There are about 10,000 students and faculty and staff at RIT. You've got a similar number of students and staff at University of Rochester, and you've got a whole lot of people in downtown Rochester who are usually divided by common geographical obstacles. They could be united by this greenway. Of course, making that greenway work in the winter would require some kind of a canopy or some kind of a solution to that pesky snow problem. Well, it turns out people have thought about the pesky snow problem and bicycle transportation for a long time. It turns out that an architect named Chris Hardwick in Toronto proposed a network of elevated bike tubes over the city of Toronto that would allow people to bike their way around Toronto even in the winter. And if they're one-way bike tubes, you've got downwind in both directions. It would be a free ride. We could do that. We've got the geography and the demographics for a single bike tube, one in each direction. Or for that matter, we could just have, let's say, a canopy that would shed the snow, produce shade in the winter, and allow hundreds of bicyclists to commute between these three locations. Of course, it wouldn't just be bicyclists. It could also be runners. It could also be skateboarders. And it could also be people riding ultralight electric vehicles. It turns out that RIT is becoming a hotbed of development of experimental and non-experimental ultralight electric vehicles. We're talking about electric bikes. Our president, who's going to be on the Green Ride, has an electric bike. We could be talking about electric trikes. Clark Hochgraf in the College of Applied Sciences and Technology is building three-wheeled electric trikes, which are a joy to ride and go about 25 miles an hour and would be perfect on a greenway. And it turns out the NTID e-bike club is setting itself up to build not one, but perhaps 12 experimental electric bikes. And it turns out that some students and I are working on what we call the Flexicle, which will be an ultralight electric vehicle that might be able to get its power not from batteries that it has to haul around, but perhaps from an experimental power setup that would be embedded in the floor of the Greenway itself. It turns out one of the most inspiring not-for-profits in town and one of the most inspiring service organizations in town is an organization called Rochester Community Bikes. They're in the near north of the city. But on Wednesday mornings and on Saturday mornings, you can find dozens of people standing on the street corner in order to get free bicycles. Volunteers at Rochester Community Bikes, volunteers from a number of church groups, and volunteers from University of Rochester and RIT are taking donated bike frames, refurbishing them, and turning them into good as new, or at any rate, certainly usable bikes, and giving them to kids and their parents who can't afford good bikes. They're giving away 50 bikes a week. They've given away 1,000 bikes already, and they're growing. In sum, the RIT Center for Student Innovation is pulling together an alliance of educational, environmental, transportation, and bike-related organizations to support a number of interrelated projects. And I believe I've mentioned many of those projects, including the October 24th Rochester Greenway Green Ride and the Rochester Bicycle Summit, because with community and governmental support, these initiatives could turn the region into a world capital of bicycling and sustainability innovation.